Good morning, my walking friends, and how are we doing today? I hope this day finds you doing well. It's pretty chilly here in beautiful Oregon, but other than that, the sun is out, the birds are cawing, and everything seems to be doing okay. What is with my hair today? It just does not want to stay down. Guess that's what happens when you take a shower and then sleep with a wet head. So anyways, we've talked in the past about the fact that I have an autistic son, and I just wanted to take a day of sharing what autism is and the facts about autism so more people can understand and be aware and be educated about it. Because a lot of people think that if somebody's diagnosed with autism that they're considered quote unquote retarded or quote unquote mentally dumb, which is so far from the truth. The truth is, autistic people are very smart and very bright, and they're almost like idiot savants. If you've ever seen the movie Rain Man, that character was based on autism. And yeah, he had his quirks where he constantly repeated numbers back and forth, and he had to read the phone book every night, but still, that's kind of like the life of living with autism. So let's start out with talking about what autism is. Autism is a cognitive disorder that's located in your brain, and it's actually on a spectrum. And if you imagine, if you will, the spectrum being a rainbow, with the Roy G. Biv, different levels. Well, different levels indicates different aspects of autism, plus the rainbow arches. So you have the high functioning autistic individuals and you have the low functioning autistic individuals. My son Gabriel is actually high functioning and at first was diagnosed with Asperger's disorder, but they actually did away with the Asperger's diagnosis. So now it's just high functioning autism. Because a lot of people used to think that if it was Asperger's, oh, they aren't autistic, they just have Asperger's. No, my friends. Asperger's is autism. It's the same thing as being autistic. It's just high functioning. So let's go over some of the facts with autism. And yes, I did come prepared. As always, I have my handy dandy notes. So with autism, 1 in 54 children are diagnosed with autism. Out of those 1 in 54, it's most prevalent in boys by 1 in 34 versus girls is 1 in 144. So basically, boys are more prevalent to be diagnosed with autism because for some unknown reason it just affects their brain differently, whereas girls are less prevalent to being autistic. Autism does have a tendency to run in families. Now, my family specifically, we have 3 autistic males, which is my son and 2 of my cousins each have an autistic child. People with gene changes associated with autism spectrum disorder generally inherit an increased risk of developing the condition rather than the condition itself. Children with autism spectrum disorder are more likely to suffer from epilepsy. This is a fact I did not know, as well as the next one. Next two, actually. Children with autism spectrum disorder are more likely to suffer from schizophrenia. If you don't know what schizophrenia is, it's a mental disorder that causes severe paranoia. It's going to be one of those talking days, I guess, as well as hearing voices, possibly seeing things, talking to people that aren't really there, so on and so forth. People with autism spectrum disorder are 3 times more likely to develop diabetes. That's another new one I didn't know about, and I got these off of reputable websites. So I did my background. I always do my background with Google searches, and then whatever pops up, I check the websites that the information comes from to make sure that they're reputable. And these came from reputable websites. Autism spectrum disorder is one of the fastest growing developmental disorders in the United States to this day. You are born with autism and have it your whole life. Now I have a story about this one. When my son was born, I knew within 24 hours he was on the spectrum. A mother just knows. And the reason why I knew was because he couldn't stand to be put in clothes. He couldn't stand to wear diapers. He screamed all the time. He didn't like his binky. He didn't like to be bottle fed very much. He wanted to nurse, but he wanted to nurse like every half an hour to an hour. But he didn't like the close skin-to-skin contact. The only way we could calm him down is if we held him to us in like a kangaroo hold, where you hold him really close and you give him kind of a tight squeeze. That's the only way we could get him to calm down. He did better with pressure than he did without pressure. And I just knew that when he was a baby that he was going to be on the spectrum. And then also when he got older, when he was about 15, I think, we applied for Social Security disability benefits for him. And we fought that in court until he was 17 years old. Or I guess I filed for it when he was 13, but we fought for it until he was 17 years old, where he was finally granted a partial back pay. And when we went to court for it the last time we went to court, because we went to court 4 times over this, the judge said, well, there's a chance he could be cured. You cannot be cured from autism, my friends. Autism is a lifelong disorder that these people have, and it's not something that you can be cured from. Now, my son suffers from severe anxiety along with his autism, which makes it impossible for him to work. So the fact that he only got a partial judgment was kind of a slap in the face, because they were saying, here, we're going to pay you back for the last, 4 years, and that's going to say that, yes, we believe that you show autistic traits for the last 4 years, but we don't believe you're going to show any autistic traits once you hit 18. We think you're going to grow out of it. So it was kind of a huge slap in the face, though it was really helpful at the time, because he was able to afford some of the things that helps him with his day-to-day lifestyle. Autistic people are better at some things than others, and this is so true. My son was horrible at English, but he's amazing when it comes to science. You give him a math problem, and as long as you leave him alone, he can figure it out by himself and come up with the right answer. I have another story to tell you about this. When he was in school in the 5th grade, you know how they started doing Common Core? Well, the teacher was trying to teach Common Core mathematics, and she wanted the problem done one way, but Gabriel knew how to do it another, so he stuck with his version of the way to do it. And so he would do the problem and he would get the right answer, but he kept getting F's on all of his assignments, and he would come home crying to me saying, I did it all right, Mom, I got the right answer, and she keeps failing me. So finally I called the teacher, and I went in there and I said, what's the deal? Even I've done this math problem and the answer's right, and you're marking it as a it being wrong, and she said, well, that's because he's not doing it the way that I want him to. Teachers should not dictate to their students as long as they're getting the right answer. They should not tell them that the way that they're learning to do it is wrong. They should be proud that they're figuring out how to do it, and they should be proud that they've figured out a way that successfully answers problems versus dictating and disciplining them for doing it in a way that they didn't seem fit. So that's my little soapbox. I have another soapbox before we're done, trust me. Adults can be diagnosed with autism. Yes, it's not just a children's disorder, folks. Adults can be diagnosed. And I honestly think if my husband were to go in and see an autism specialist and have the testing done, they would test him as being high-functioning autistic as well, because he has a lot of the same traits and mannerisms as Gabriel, and Dan is so much like Gabriel. You can definitely tell they're father and son, even though they're not biological father and son. You would never know that they weren't biological father and son because of just how much alike they are. Self-stimulatory behavior, or stimming, is not always bad. It is closing yourself off from something that is bothering you by repetition to focus on calming in a repetitive nature. I wrote that down wrong. But stimming, otherwise known as, quote, self-stimulatory behavior, unquote, is a good thing when it comes to when children become too overstimulated. They start to do what's called stimming, which is constantly moving their legs, or you'll see autistic children that shake their hands, and they call that flapping the hands, where they'll be like this. That's what they call stimming, is when they're flapping their hands. They'll talk to themselves, they'll repeat numbers or repeat phrases. My son, his form of stimming is he has to be sitting in front of a video game, and the constant repetitive motion of the controller will actually help him self-soothe, and it's really helpful to him to do this. It helps him calm down. It helps get him out of the situation that he feels that he's in, and it helps him by just sitting there doing the repetitive motions. The spectrum is not linear. Like I said, think of it as a rainbow. Autism involves hundreds of factors. This is where the Roy G. Biv levels come in. Autism involves hundreds of factors, including but not limited to how we process change, social interactions, basic communication, and forward planning. By forward planning, that's figuring out how you're going to do for that day or what you're going to do for that day. It's also trying to figure out how to phrase words for basic communication skills. If you're trying to get something across and you don't quite know how to communicate your needs, you have to take a moment to figure that out. It's learning how to do social interaction. One great example of this is, I don't know if any of my followers watched the Fox TV show 911, but during one episode this last season, a kid that plays an autistic individual gets on a bus, and he's like, I'm working on my eye contact today. See? And he opens his eyes really wide, and I just started laughing when I saw that. Not because I was laughing at his extent or laughing at him to make fun of him, but because I remember when Gabriel would do that. I'm working on my eye contact today. And he would go look people directly in the eyes and sometimes make them uncomfortable because they had no idea what he was doing unless he explained to them that he was working on his eye contact. And change as well. Change is very difficult for people on the spectrum. Changes can be anything from going to your favorite store to buy your favorite item to eat and then being sold out of it, so having to pick something else, to changing your clothes from, say, your ASD child has color-coded days. Monday we wear yellow, Tuesday we wear green, Wednesday we wear red, so on and so forth, and say that the yellow outfit is dirty still, so they have to pick a different outfit. That can be very detrimental to their lifestyle, but that is one of the things with that they need to learn how to process is, if something doesn't go my way, or if something doesn't seem to be going the way that I want it to, how can I acclimate to that, and how can I change along with the situation? Asperger's is autism, which we've already covered. Children with autistic parents, or actually autistic individuals, are more likely to have a child with autism. The odds are 9 times more likely. So an adult with autism has a 9 times more likely odd to have a child with autism. And that again goes along with the genetic traits. I myself don't think I'm autistic. I don't think my ex-husband is autistic, but we did have an autistic child. But then again, somewhere in our family gene pool, somebody must have been autistic for there to be 3 individuals in our family with autism. There are a bunch of famous people with autism. Did you know that? You can be autistic and still come out on top and be famous. And I'm going to go over a list of famous people with you. Dan Aykroyd, the actor. Susan Boyle, the singer. Albert Einstein, the scientist and mathematician. Temple Grandin, the animal scientist. Daryl Hannah, the actress and environmental activist. Sir Anthony Hopkins, the actor, who I also believe was knighted. Heather Kuzmich, the fashion model. Hans Christian Andersen, the children's author. Tim Burton, the movie director. Lewis Carroll, who wrote Alice in Wonderland. Charles Darwin, the biologist. Paul Dirac, the physicist. Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft. Bobby Fischer, the chess grandmaster. Steve Jobs, the former CEO of Apple. Thomas Jefferson, the early politician. And Michelangelo, the famous painter. And that's just to name a few. That doesn't list all the hundreds of famous autistic individuals there are out there. Now, like I said, I have more than one soapbox. When you take an autistic child into a store and he's just not having a good day, say he woke up that morning and you were out of his favorite cereal and he had to pick something different to eat, and they have meltdowns. Boy, do they have meltdowns. My son was the king of meltdowns. My mother and I had been kicked out of Target, asked to remove him. He was not allowed to go into Target for a while. We have been asked to leave movies. We have been asked to leave stores. We have been asked to leave restaurants. And it's all because he would have meltdowns. And the thing is you get looks from other parents. The look that says, why can't you control your kid? You know, that disappointing, arrogant look that other parents pass off to you if your child is misbehaving in a store. Well, they don't know what the situation is. And so I would always get these looks if Gabriel was having a meltdown. And my response to them was always, if you took a picture, it would last longer, because they would stare. And you just get these horrible, nasty looks from individuals that don't know you from Adam. And the thing is that's the problem. They don't know you from Adam. So the next time you're in a store and you see somebody having a hard time with their child, don't automatically assume that they're just a bad parent and they have bad parenting skills. Maybe it's because they have a child on the spectrum, and maybe they're just having a bad day. Maybe their child woke up and they were out of their favorite cereal, or they were out of their favorite juice, or they had to supplement orange juice instead of apple juice, because acidity in foods and juices can actually spark meltdowns, or at least it did in my son, because it upset his stomach. Maybe he was in the car ride and you took a different route to get to the store, or maybe he's in a store that he doesn't know. These are all good prime examples of what can go wrong in the day of an autistic individual. I implore you to watch the Netflix TV show Atypical. That is a great and wonderful show. It's about a young man who's on the spectrum and his struggles with dealing with dealing with life in general in high school and going off to college. If you see kids walking through a store with headphones, don't automatically assume, oh, they're part of this new generation. My God, they can't even take their headphones off in a store. Sometimes autism children and autism adults wear headphones to block out the noise because background noises bother them. It's just a whole new way of thinking, and I understand that, but I implore you to try. And basically, it's just, you gotta think about what other people may be going through. You never know another person's situation unless you're in their shoes. And that's pretty much my soapbox for the day. Don't automatically assume you know what's going on in somebody's head unless you ask them. And if you were to walk up to a mother sometimes and say, I'm sorry to ask you this, but is your child on the spectrum? They know exactly what you're talking about, and a lot of the times they're relieved if you understand. I know I was. If somebody came up to me when Gabriel was having a meltdown and said, I'm sorry, are you having a bad day? Is your child on the spectrum? I would just be so thankful, and I would be like, yes, thank you, yes, you get it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you searching me out and asking me that instead of just assuming I have a bratty child, because my child is the smartest, the most loving, the most caring person I have ever met. He has been through some heavy shit in his life, but he is amazing. And that's what you need to remember. That these children and these adults are amazing people. They've been through it all. And that's pretty much what it boils down to, is just ask. Don't assume. And that's it for today, my friends. Oh, by the way, how are you doing? How's your walking going? I've gotten my 10,000 steps in a day for the last 3 days. And I'm hoping you're doing the same as well. I haven't been walking nearly as much as I wanted to, but that's because of the cold weather with my fibro. Really kind of messes with my joints and my hips. So my hips have been bugging me really bad. But I've pushed myself and I've gotten my 10,000 steps. So hopefully you guys can push yourself as well. And Let me know in the comment box what you think. If you have any questions about autism, please feel free to ask them in the comment box. I pretty much have heard it, known it, or seen it all. So, not saying I'm a know-it-all or anything, but I've been through a lot of it. And if I don't know the answer, I will definitely find out and answer your question. If you like this video, please hit the like button. I'm trying to build up a nice big lot of subscribers and a nice channel here. If you didn't like my video, you can hit the dislike button as well. If you liked my channel and this is the first time watching my videos, please hit the subscribe button. I know that I said I was going to be doing the indigenous Yakima Native tribe women disappearances. I'm still working on it. I didn't realize what kind of a rabbit hole I was burying myself into until I started doing research on it, and it's going to take a lot of research, and I want to make sure all my facts are straight and make sure I have quotes from the family members. So I'm just trying to do the absolute best that I can. So it may be in 2 days, it may be in 4 days before I can actually get those up. And first I'm going to be working on the unsolved homicide cases. Then we'll go to the missing persons and court cases and the other cases that go along with it. So we're going to do the best that we can with what we can. And I will see you back on Tuesday, because this is Sunday. So you have a great rest of your weekend. And I will see you again on Tuesday. Bye, my friends. Love ya.